Welcome to r/IDontWorkHereLady, where we share stories about folks that go into other businesses and have irate customers mistake them for employees. And the first story is Saved by the Karen. So I'm pretty new to the Reddit app and site itself, though I've heard plenty of stories from different YouTubers, so I'm not sure if this is the final home for this story, but it's definitely an IDontWorkHereLady moment with a plot twist at the end. I'm still having trouble believing that this happened, despite the insurmountable evidence that says it did. This story also happened to my wife, which makes it so much scarier for me that I wasn't there when this all went down, except at the end. My wife, who we will call Jessica, or Jay for dialogue, was shopping at our local Walmart with our daughter, who was 2 months old at this point, getting some stuff for dinner for the week. Let me preface by saying that in no way was she wearing any clothing that said she worked there at Walmart. She was in the spice aisle on a relatively not-so-busy day, trying to figure out what spices we may be low of at home, when a Karen walked up to her. Now, when I say Karen, I pulled up the first Google image of the "Let me speak to your manager" haircut search result, and my wife legit thought it was her at first. That's how Karen-ish she looked. Karen, or Kay as I'll be referring her to as, looked somewhat familiar to my wife as she approached her, but any hopes of trying to figure out who she was immediately dashed the moment she opened her mouth. Karen: "Excuse me, I need help getting the pancake mix. It's on the top shelf." Jessica, looking confused: "I'm sorry, ma'am, but I don't work here. And I can't quite help you out either because I'm only a few inches taller than you, so I don't think I could reach it either." Karen, raising her voice: "Don't give me that. I know you work here because I saw you helping an older gentleman a few moments ago." Jessica, looking even more confused: "I'm not sure what you're talking about. I haven't talked to anyone except my daughter since I got here." Karen, raising her voice even more still: "Don't you dare lie to me. I know I saw you help that guy, and how dare you bring your kid to work? That is so unprofessional of you." Now, what kind of crowd did this confrontation draw, you may ask? Well, potential questioners that may or may not exist. A grand total of one person, a lady, was standing at the end of the aisle watching all this unfold. There were a few people that looked down the aisle, but they continued walking as they did so. This is important. Now, my wife can be a pretty calm person, and she doesn't really like confrontation, but boy does she snap real quick. It was even worse during the pregnancy. I love you, sweetie, if you happen to be reading this. She's well aware of her quick temper and will usually walk away from a situation if her blood starts to boil. Obviously, this was one of those situations. Without saying a word, she turns and grabs the cart, then attempts to leave. Karen, practically screaming at this point: "Hey, you bee! Get back over here! I wasn't done talking to you! I want to speak to your manager! I will have your job!" This was the last straw for my wife. She turned around and started screaming and cussing at her. She wouldn't tell me exactly what she said, but she felt so bad for some of the words that she chose. Karen looked utterly shocked. Then she suddenly placed her head in her hands and started crying. My wife felt bad for her for a second and was about to apologize when suddenly Karen just took off running past her. When she turned to try and stop her, she watched Karen suddenly run into somebody who was right next to my wife's cart, knocking them both to the floor. It was the same lady that was standing at the end of the aisle watching this as it went down. Karen very quickly shifts gears back to a usual Karen attitude. Karen, shrieking: "How dare you assault me? I will have you arrested for this. Someone call the police on this lady." The lady in question looked very concerned and looked like she just wanted to get out of there. She got up and turned to run away, but as she turned around, the manager and a police officer had just appeared behind her. "Police, what's going on here?" Karen's voice has gone from shrieking eagle to a very calm but very serious tone. "Karen, you need to take the three of us to the back room right now." Manager: "Oh, believe me, we are." When they got back there, apparently everything was revealed. Evidently, the lady that Karen ran into had been stalking my wife throughout the store, and Karen had noticed her strange behavior. She had called the police about her, hence why the officer had been there. After she hung up the phone, it looked like the lady was about to make her move, so Karen decided to try and deter her as well as call a manager over at the same time by acting the way she did. She didn't want my wife walking away right towards the lady, so she did what she could to try to keep her to stay. Unfortunately, wasn't planning for her to completely take her attention off my daughter. During my wife's beratement towards Karen, the creepy lady was making her move, so Karen took action while trying to keep things calm by pretending to accidentally run into her. She also didn't flat out warn my wife because she wanted to try to catch this person straight up, because she knew that if she just scared her away, she might try again with another child. I'm guessing that if push came to shove, Karen would have stuck by my wife's side rather than trying to chase her down if she managed to get out of the aisle. Upon reviewing the security footage, it was confirmed that the lady was indeed following my wife around. And after lying to the police about her identity, they found out that she had a warrant for her arrest for relations in multiple child abduction cases across the state. It was believed that she was the head recruiter for a large human trafficking ring. I was called a few moments later and flew down the highway to meet up with my wife to make sure everything's okay. I personally thanked Karen profusely. I even took her out to dinner as a thank you for looking out for my daughter and wife. I'm sure most of you are wondering if she knows the stigma around the haircut she had, and it did get brought up in conversation. And the answer is yes, she knew. She got the haircut just a little before the style got popular on the internet for Karens, but she got too many compliments and thought she looked really cute to change it. I asked if I could post a story on Reddit, and she was more than happy to let me paint her the ugly color that she displayed at first, so long as I gave this message at the end. Keep a close eye on your kids. There are some really messed up people here in this world. It's better to deal with an entitled Karen than it is to face a kidnapper any day. A little obvious, but okay Karen, message sent. Another story is, actually lady, you're the one who works here. In my area, we have a community garden that is run by volunteers, including me. It's pretty standard community garden rules. At the start of the season, you get an assigned plot and pay, you plant things there, and take care of your little garden area. If you don't plant or don't care for your plot, you lose it to the next person on the waiting list. It's the first thing of its kind in our area, and there's a pretty long waiting list. Because our garden is run by unpaid volunteers, we have been somewhat slow to contact people whose plots have not been planted. We were almost 2 months into the season before I emailed a few errant people for the first time. Almost everyone responded immediately. There was just one empty plot that remained empty after another few weeks of emails. I actually called the number of the lady who the plot was assigned to. I will call this lady Not a Gardener, or NAG for short. Not a Gardener was shocked to hear that she was in danger of losing her plot, and furious. I get it, maybe the emails weren't received. One of us should have called right away. She kept demanding to talk to the person in charge and kept asking about her vegetables and who was at fault for this negligence. I apologized again and just let her know that she needed to come and plant soon or give the plot up. I got off the phone as quickly as possible because I did not want to deal with her. I had the pleasure of meeting Not a Gardener the following weekend when I was at the garden with my 2 little kids. Not a Gardener marched over to me and with no introduction immediately started in again about the negligence and how could we be so unprofessional and where were her vegetables. She was puffy and angry and very, very rude. She wouldn't let me finish a sentence and was trying to tell me she was going to get me fired for my volunteer garden position. I was trying to calm her down, but she wouldn't let me get a few words into it before she interrupted me. Finally, to get her away from my kids, I said, let's go and see her plot. We walked over to the area where her plot was, and it was very clear that it was the only neglected plot in the whole garden. The other plots have many plants already growing big. You can see peppers and tomatoes starting to be ready, cucumbers climbing all over the place, and a huge variety of greens and herbs. Not a Gardener's plot is dirt and weeds. Not a Gardener basically stops dead in her tracks, sputters a bit, and then her whole tone changes. She went from being angry to wailing and crying about how could we do this to her. How could we treat her like this? What had she done to us? Was it because she was new? Because she was American? Poor her. She deserved better. What about her vegetables? She really needed her vegetables. She gets a little hysterical and starts to point out plots that are grown and have vegetables, and demanding those. She even went as far as to try and grab a green tomato from the neighboring plot, but her heels slipped a little and she almost fell. This set her off more and she is making quite a show, so others in the garden come over to check on her. As she wails on, I suddenly realize what is happening. Not a Gardener thought that the community garden meant that we were going to garden for her, and her fee at the start of the year is for us to plant her vegetables and care for her plot and harvest her veggies for her. She has been sitting at home all this time expecting vegetable deliveries. I should have figured it out sooner, but all I wanted was to not deal with her, so I wasn't paying as much attention to her as I should have. Also, the garden rules are pretty clear, and when she paid, she signed an agreement to the rules. I explained it as nicely as I could to Not a Gardener. The plots are for her to plant and grow. Her small fee only covers the cost of the land and irrigation system. If she wants the vegetables she's been demanding, she needs to plant them and care for them. It is her job, not ours. She is the one that works on her plot, not us. It takes a few tries to get this through, and luckily another volunteer is there to be with me as backup. She of course gets angry again about how no one told her, but she signed the paperwork and it's all very clear there. I let her know there's some money left. If she wants her fee back, we'll give it to her and give her plot to the next person on the waiting list. She yelled at me, "That won't be necessary," which was funny because it's a polite sentence, but she said it in the rudest way possible, and she stomps off out the gate and away. The next weekend, I go to the garden and surprise. Her plot is planted, and it looks great. She has a good variety and things are done neatly. There are little paver stones to walk on and tons of veggies. It turns out she has hired a professional gardener to do her community garden plot for her and deliver the veggies. He's the best guy. He's very nice and polite and happy to talk about why the tomatoes are dying or how to add more potassium through compost. He's willing to babysit other plots if people are on vacations. He's super friendly and it's great to run into him. He has set out seedlings for anyone to take a number of times as well. I'm so happy to not have to see Not a Gardener ever again, and instead we have an awesome new friend. Thanks for listening. If you want more stories, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. Have a great day!